Jin Ping Mei Chapter 3, Part 2, Setting a Trap for the Prodigal Son to Pick Him Up Privately. It is said that after dinner the next day, Wu Dao went out to carry the burden, and Wang Po came over to greet him. The woman went to his house, took out some living things, and sewed them together. Wang Po hurriedly ordered tea and came to have tea with him. When it was noon, the woman took out 300 coins from her sleeve, and said to the king's wife, "Godmother, I will buy you a glass of wine." Wang Po said, "Ah, there is such a truth. I and my wife are living here. How can I ask my wife to pay for it? My wife's food and wine will be hurt if I don't eat it." The woman said, "But it's the stupid man who pays for it. Slave, if your godmother sees you, she just leaves the house and returns to your godmother." After hearing this, the old lady said, "The old man knows what's going on. Since the lady said this, I'll just accept it." The woman was afraid of disturbing things, so she added money to buy good wine and food, and treated her with hospitality. The judge heard, "You are a very delicate woman in the world, but you can be manipulated 10 or 9 times by small things." The mother-in-law arranged wine, food and snacks and ate with the woman. After sewing for a while, I saw how late it was and returned home with many thanks. Stop talking. After breakfast on the third day, Mrs. Wang went out with Zhang Wu, walked past the back door and shouted, "Madam, I am brave." The woman answered from upstairs, "I'm waiting for you." When the two servants met, they came to Wang Po's room and sat down, taking out their living clothes to sew. Needless to say, the old lady ordered tea. The woman looked at her sewing until round noon. But Simon Kingba didn't arrive that day, so he walked towards Xixi Street, neatly dressed, carrying 3 to 5 taels of silver and a Sajian fan in his hand. When he arrived at Mrs. Wang's door, he coughed and said, "Wang Qianyang, why haven't you seen me for days?" The old woman looked at the subject and responded, "Who the hell call me?" Simon King said, "It's me." The woman rushed out to see him and said with a smile, "I just wanted to know who it was. It turned out to be a high-ranking official. You came just in time. Please come into the house and have a look." He dragged Simon King into the room with just one sleeve and said to the woman, "This is the official who donated my clothes and materials." Simon King opened his eyes and looked at the woman, a servant girl with green clouds and a pink face. She was wearing a white shirt, a pink skirt, and a blue hat. She was making clothes in the room. Seeing Simon King coming, he lowered his head. Simon King quickly bent forward and sang. The woman immediately gave up her life and returned the blessing. Wang Po then said, "It's rare for an official to make silk and silk for an old man. He has kept it at home for more than a year and has never been able to make it. It's a shame that the lady next door took the initiative to make it with me. It's really a cloth machine and it seems to be a good needle and thread. The stitching is so good and dense. It's really rare. Sir, come here and take a look." Simon King picked up the clothes and looked at them. He cheered and said, "This lady has such good needle skills and magical methods." The woman lowered her head and smiled and said, "No joke for officials." Simon Chingo asked Wang Po, "Godmother, I dare not ask whose house this lady is from." Wang Po said, "Guess?" Simon King said, "How can a villain guess this?" Wang Po laughed and said, "Official, please sit down. I'll tell you." Then Simon King sat down opposite the woman. The woman said, "It's good for the officials to know about it. You walked under the eaves that day and hit it just right." Simon King said, "Is it the one who hit me with the fork pull at the door that day? I wonder whose house has a wife." The woman lowered her head and said with a smile, "The slaves accidentally collided with each other that day. Officials, please rest assured." "Weird," Simon King responded quickly, "I don't dare, a villain." Wang Po said, "That's it, Mrs. Wu from Jianbi." Simon King said, "That's it, the villain has lost his sight." Wang Po looked at the woman and said, "Madam, do you recognize this official?" The woman said, "I don't know." The mother-in-law said, "This official is a rich man in this county. The county magistrate also associates with him. He is called Simon Dogwanren. His family has tens of millions of money and they open a medicine shop in front of the county gate. The family's money exceeds Beidou. The rice is rotten into barns, the yellow ones are gold, the white ones are silver, the round ones are beads, the shining ones are treasures. There are also horns on the heads of rhinos and tusks in the mouths of elephants. His eldest wife, who is also the matchmaker I am talking about, is the young lady from Wuqian whose family is born with a bright face and a bright face. Because he asked, "How come you, a high-ranking official, can only have tea with a poor family?" Simon King said, "It's just that the little girl in the family has been married for several days, so she can't have time to come." The mother-in-law said, "Sister, who is married? Why don't you ask me to go to the matchmaker?" Simon King said, "I was married to Chen Zai, the in-law of Admiral Yang, the 800,000-strong imperial army in Tokyo. His son Chen Jingji is only 17 years old and is still in school. Why don't you ask your godmother to be a matchmaker? He has a one sister-in-law over there who comes to ask for help." I also asked sister-in-law Zhu, who sells green flowers at home, to work with Baoshan to arrange the marriage. If the godmother is willing, go and have some tea tomorrow and I'll send someone to invite you. The mother-in-law laughed and said, "I'm fooling the high-ranking officials. The matchmakers, are all raised by bitches, and they didn't have me when they proposed marriage. How can I be as good as the cooked rice? As the saying goes, when I get married, I'll be married tomorrow. I'll be messing around for 3 or 5 days. I'll take some favors and get a table and a half. I'm serious. How can I fight with others, 2 people in one?" I said it once. The mother-in-law only praised Simon King and made false noises, so the woman lowered her head and sewed. Water nature is always female, and she often steals from her husband with outsiders. The golden lotus heart loves Simon King, but the lustful spring heart is not free. Simon King was overjoyed to see Jin Lian affectionately, and wished they could get married. Wang Po then went to order 2 cups of tea, handed one to Simon Singh and the other to the woman, and said, "My lady treats the officials to some tea." Zhuan looked at Simon King again and touched his face with his hand. Simon King already knew that he was 5 minutes old. Since ancient times, it has been said that tea is the matchmaker, and wine is the matchmaker. Wang Po then said, "If the official doesn't come, I don't dare to go to the house to invite him." One of them happened to meet by chance, and the 2 came at the right time. As the saying goes, a guest can't bother 2 hosts. The official just pays. Yes. This lady has contributed so much that I have to kill you 2 benefactors. It's not that I have different pots, but it's rare that this lady is here. The official can be the master of me, spend some money to buy some wine and food, and have a good relationship with me. "Madam, how about watering your hands?" Simon King said. "Even a villain can't see it here. There is money here." Then he took it out from the eggplant bag, about 1 or 2 pieces, and handed it to Wang Po to prepare food and drinks. The woman then said, "Don't let go of the suffering." He couldn't stand up as he spoke. Wang Po took the money and said before going out, "Madam, please sit down with the official and I'll come right away." The woman said, "My godmother is exempted," but he didn't move either. Wang Po then went out, leaving Simon King and the woman in the house. Simon King didn't move his eyes, only looking at the woman. The old lady also glanced at Simon King secretly, and went about her daily life with her head down. Not long after, Mrs. Wang bought some fat goose and roast duck, cooked meat and fresh fish, and delicate fruits. When she came back, she filled the dishes and placed them on the table in the room. The woman looked at her and said, "Madam, please clean up your life, and have a glass of wine." The woman said, "You eat with high officials, but you don't deserve to be a slave." The old woman said, "I am just pouring my hands with my wife." Why do I say this? While placing the plate of food in front of them, the 3 of them sat down and poured the wine. Simon King picked up the wine cup and said, "Godmother, please treat me to my wife, and have a few full drinks." The woman thanked her and said, "The slave's food is small and I can't eat it." Wang Po said, "I know that my wife is drinking a lot, please enjoy 2 cups. The woman took the wine in her hand and wished each of them blessings. Simon King picked up the chopsticks and said, "My godmother, help me persuade my wife to have some vegetables." The mother-in-law picked it up and handed it over to the woman to eat. After pouring the wine 3 times in a row, the woman went to boil the wine. Simon King said, "I don't dare to ask. How young is my wife?" The woman lowered her head and replied, 25 years old. Simon King said, "My wife is born in the same Jiang as the Lily family member, and she is also born in the year of Jiangchen. She is on the 15th day of August." The woman responded again, "Compare the sky to the earth, kill the slaves." Wang Po then interjected, "What a fine lady, with 100 talents and 100 talents, and she is also good at needlework. There are hundreds of schools of thought, Chuanglu chess, folding cards and Taoist calligraphy. She is good at writing." Simon King said, "Where can I go to ask for it?" Wang Po said, "I'm not here to say right and wrong. There are many high-ranking officials in their houses. Where can I find someone who looks like a lady?" Simon King said, "It's just like this. It's hard to describe. It's just that the villain's life is poor and he has never found a good one at home." Wang Po said, "It's better for a high-ranking official to be the first to have a wife's beard." Simon King said, "Don't talk about it. If my late wife was alive, she would be dead and the house would be without an owner. Now there are only 3 to 5 or 7 people around to eat, and they don't care about anything." The mother-in-law said loudly, "Even I have forgotten. How many years has it been without an eldest lady?" Simon King said, "I can't say. The villain's first wife, Mrs. Chen, although she is from a humble background, is very smart and capable. She can do everything for her. It's me. Unfortunately, it's been 3 years since he passed away. Now I'm tired of marrying this cheap guy, and he's often sick. He doesn't care about things, and things at home are in disarray. Why does the villain just walk out? When he was at home, I feel like vomiting." The mother-in-law said, "Old official, please don't blame me for telling you so bluntly. Your first wife and my current wife are not as good as this lady, and they don't have the skill and appearance of this lady." Simon King said, "Even the servants are not as charming as this lady." The old woman smiled and said, "My lord, why don't you invite me to tea in the outer house you raise on the East Street?" Simon King said, "That's Zhang Shichun, who sings slow songs. I saw him as Lu. I don't like people who are alien to me." The mother-in-law said again, "My lord, you and Li Zhaoer and Gulen have been together for a long time." Simon King said, "This man is now married to the family. If he becomes the head of the family, he will be registered as his wife." Wang Po asked, "How well do you get along with second sister Zhuo?" Simon King said, "Don't mention Zhuo Daiwer. I also married and had a third wife at home. I had a minor illness recently, but it disappeared again." The mother-in-law said, Yakuyu, Yakuyu. If there is someone as popular as the eldest lady, come to the house and say, "Is it okay?" Simon King said, "My parents are both gone." "Well, I said it myself. Who dares to say no?" Wang Po said, "I said it myself, but I am so anxious that there is such a popular person among the officials." Simon King said, "What can I do? I only hate the fate of my husband and wife. It's thin, so it won't hit you." Simon King and his mother-in-law exchanged words. Wang Po said, "It was time to have a drink, but it was gone. Officials, please don't blame me. How about buying a bottle of wine to eat?" Simon King then put some 3 or 4 taels of silver into the eggplant bag and gave it to Wang. The mother-in-law said, "Godmother, take it. When you want to eat, just take it. If there is too much, the godmother will take it away." The woman thanked her and stood up. When I looked at the pink head, after 3 hours of drinking, my heart was roused, and my words were full of meaning. I just lowered my head and did not get up. Exactly, the love between the eyes and eyebrows is not over yet, and the marriage coincides with the romance. Wang Po is greedy and has no other skills. She just talks and talks.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.